You are now entering Paleo Radio.
Welcome to Paleo Radio with your hosts Jeremiah Bannister and Joe Elder.
We are back live in studio, 95.3 FM, 1680 AM, and 102.5 FM in the greater Grand Rapids area. My name is Joe Elder.
I am the Juggernaut, Jeremiah Bannister.
The Juggernaut, Jeremiah Bannister.
Yeah, it's true, the Juggernaut.
I like it. Yeah,
it kind of
nice.
Sounds good. It's smooth.
Yeah, nice
Strong.
smooth one.
Yeah.
We are back for another fantastic episode of Paleo Radio. Again, we are a weekly show on every Monday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in studio live. We do take phone calls, 616-656-1680 to join the conversation.
And actually, we shared a Facebook video pre-show.
Yes, we did.
Pre-show. You can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Paleo Radio, and you can see some of the studio in here and hear some of the topics that we're going to talk about. But, Joe, I'm telling you, bro, massive number of awesome topics laid out here, spread out for everybody.
Yeah, we
Delicious.
do. We've got quite a blurb, don't we? Good little mix.
Yeah.
Good little mix. I'm loving it. Why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown?
Starting with the beautiful beast. And I mean, this is the James Corden as Belle from Beauty and the Beast. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not.
I've been kind of critical of that guy. I feel terrible to say that, but I'm just not into that whole karaoke in the car thing. Hardly ever.
Yeah.
I think it's played out.
I think it is
I think
at
it's a little
this
played
point.
out. Yeah,
but
at this point.
That's the first thing he was famous for, but I think he's been good well before that. That's what got him nationally recognized.
That's why I like him, though, stuff before that, because he was on Doctor Who, and he has a special role and a special place in my heart due to his role in that show. But anyway, we're going to talk about diversity at Marvel. This is an interesting thing. A head dog over there, they've been doing research trying to figure out what's the reason for movies doing so well, the Marvel movies doing so great, and yet the Marvel comics themselves not selling well. And this individual said that from the data, and he seems not very excited to be talking openly about what they've heard, but they blame it on diversity. The writer of the article that we went to challenges that. So you're going to hear both narratives. You're going to hear the idea that diversity is part of the demise. That's from Marvel. And you're going to hear something that I've been complaining about with comics for a long time, and that is just the price of the stinking things, that they're just really expensive now.
Yeah.
For 22 pages, you're paying like $5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that people like the drawing. They like the detailed artwork. I can understand that. But also it could just be a medium that is having people lose some interest in it. That
right.
People are getting their comic book fix from the theater now. I mean, right now we have more action hero movies than ever before. So, yeah, that's going to be very interesting. We're going to get into another article about Trump tweeting you.
It's hilarious because there is an app, and I don't know if people have done this. There's an app over on Facebook where you can go ahead and plug your name in there, and it will crunch out a tweet that Donald Trump tweeted specifically about you, and it is hilarious, the kind of stuff that gets pumped out of that thing. Talking about privacy rules, Joe, we actually had this lined up for last week. We teed it up, but we didn't go anywhere with it.
That's right. We do need to discuss it.
We're going to put that one back in the old bag.
Yep, privacy.
Privacy rules online. Russian AIDS, man, and we've kind of hinted at this. I mentioned before that Roger Stone is salivating, chomping at the bit. He's been saying that, at least, getting on his videos and saying, let me go in front of the Congress and let me do this and let me do that.
Yes.
And there's, interestingly enough, now they're saying a lot of these guys are kind of doing the same thing, and it's an interesting, they're not anticipating this. In fact, a lot of people who deal with this sort of thing say maybe you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
Like maybe you need to rethink that strategy. Teen scientists, man, these super genius kids making tons of loot for inventing things that I can't even hardly pronounce. I don't even know how. I had to go in, and we're going to help everybody out. We went in and we looked up definitions. to make sure that when we're talking about these topics that you know what we're talking about. So that and a whole bunch of other things. The last thing I want to throw out there before moving on, though, is this whole blasphemy thing, Joe.
Yes.
In Facebook, because I'm not seeing a lot about it, and yet I'm seeing stuff from Pakistani newspapers and from governmental bodies over there, leaders who are quoted as saying that Facebook has actively been doing this. And in fact, quoting a letter from Facebook to their people saying that they're going to meet with them to further discuss this kind of stuff. And I was blown away, number one, by kind of the silence on the whole thing. You're not seeing a lot of places discussing this, even with governmental bodies and everything. But also the fact that They were saying like 85% of these blasphemous sites were taken care of by like 45 or 60 of these sites being stopped. And I said, really? That's 85% of the blasphemy you guys got, man? They're already censoring the daylights out of Facebook in Pakistan, apparently, because I have more than that I just like. I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking, dude, how is it that that's not already just the most grotesque form of censorship if 85% of all the blasphemy in your country on Facebook is wrapped up in like 45 different sites?
Well, those 45 sites are probably the most bold ones there are, because in Pakistan, you can die for it.
Okay, if they're only Pakistan sites, if they're only places in Pakistan.
I think there's sites in Pakistan.
So they don't even allow, I'd be curious to know if they even allow the external ones.
I don't even know if they do.
So, I mean, we'd already be
Facebook,
dealing with just massive censorship already.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, just wow. Yeah. So a whole bunch of great stuff. But, Joe, what did you do this weekend, man? I mean, now this weekend we had April Fools.
Yes.
How was that?
April Fools was fantastic.
Was it?
I saw a post about them releasing kangaroos into Yellowstone National Park, which I thought was a pretty clever one. That was pretty good. I usually don't engage in April Fools, especially this year, being that pretty much all the content coming from Facebook and social media every single day has been kind of a joke. There's no reason to celebrate it anymore. It's the norm. But, yeah, I had a good time. I celebrated my 30th birthday with some friends. That was a good time.
Yeah.
So we have a ridiculous picture from that night. We're not going to post online because
it's
not for public eyes.
Oh, no.
But it is up. Well, it is up on my Instagram page, so I shouldn't say it's not for the public, but it's in a different medium than Facebook.
It's in a different medium. Maybe what we can do is we can have a sketch artist come in and sketch it like they do in courtrooms.
That's right. What they thought it could be.
This right here is what you'll see if you go to Instagram. My weekend, man, I went to Battle Creek, and I actually spent some time at Samantha's grave, my daughter's grave. And for people who don't know, my daughter died of brain cancer after about 16 fantastical months of living one of the most inspirational lives maybe the world has ever known. And I encourage everybody to go check her out at facebook.com/team Tiny Dancer Forever. That's her Facebook page that she used while she was alive. And we've transformed that into her fan page. But it was awesome. I mean, in fact, I shared a picture, and I know this is weird to say, but I just want to get it out and just say this, is that, we mourn in our own way and time. Everybody kind of does that. and I'm doing it for sure, no doubt. And we went, and it was just really cool because there was an element, of course, of sadness. We're all looking down at the grave. I mean, you're obviously going to get sad about that. But there was also laughter. Like we were having fun. We were talking and telling stories. I have a picture which I think kind of embodies and encapsulates the whole thing. And it's of Teresa, our youngest, T-Bear. And she's running as fast as she can. She's kind of running toward the gravesite, and I'm down toward the ground to see the headstone. It says, "Never give up, keep on smiling" on it. And Teresa's has this big, joyous smile on her face. Mm-hmm. And just the action of the whole picture, I think it's just perfect. And we had an awesome weekend, but I made a big mistake, man. And it broke my heart, Joe. Because part of it, dude, was your birthday present.
Oh, well, that's okay. I can understand.
Part of it was your birthday present, dude, but it was an edible thing. And what I did is I went to Battle Creek and I picked up food from a place called Ritzy's.
Yes.
Which is a staple, man. It's
Yep.
like if you have never eaten there, it's like you've never had Kellogg's cereal. It's about that important, really. In
For
history.
sure.
Oh, for
For
sure.
Battle Creek,
yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, no, for everything.
For everywhere.
Ritzy's is actually far more important than people will ever know. So Ritzy in their olive burger and all that stuff. But also I got a Bannister special from Mancino's named after my dad.
Yes.
It was so exciting, man. It's a roast beef supreme. But I bought it and I left it in Uncle Derek's house, and so he's going to have.
So it's gone.
It's definitely gone. Anyone who knows, he follows us around, takes pictures of some of our events and things that we do, and it's my cousin Derek. And
Yes.
he's a bachelor guy, and he has the bachelor fridge, and so now
and that's gone.
And now, it's definitely gone in his bachelor belly.
That's all right. Well,
I
I
love you,
appreciate
Derek.
I appreciate the thought, and we do love Derek. So you know what? As a good birthday gift, I'm glad that he got to eat it.
And if you have any hilarious or just however weird April Fool's joke story that you have, right, give us a call, 616-656-1680. But, Joe, this whole Beautiful Beast thing, man, James Corden.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, James Corden.
Old James Corden going out, dressing up like Belle. And you got to I mean, how tall do you think that guy is? How tall is Corden?
You know, maybe like
5'11".
5'11".
Yeah, 6 foot, 5'11".
Maybe 6 foot. I don't know if
What if he's
even
just like a monster? What if he's like really, really tall?
Yeah, I don't think
so.
I don't think he's that tall. We'll look it up right now. Why not? We have the internets.
Yeah, because Joe Scarborough, I would have never thought this, but Joe Scarborough's like 6'7". Bill
Yes.
O'Reilly's like 6'5". You
Yeah.
know, so you see, but then again, I mean, Corden, you see him standing up a lot as opposed to people on news programs
Yes.
where they're always just sitting down. He's running around, so you see him sized up compared to other people, and he doesn't look like,
No.
David and Goliath.
Well, and most people aren't that big. I mean, I know Conan O'Brien, he's another one that they have.
He's like 6'7".
They make the desk
6'6".
big to make him look like he fits in it a little better. It says James Corden is 5'8".
Wow.
So, yeah.
He's
But
you're taller than James Corden.
Yeah, I am.
Wow, that's interesting to think about.
Something. Yeah.
I'm not. I am not taller than James
But
Corden.
5'8". I mean, that's the thing
no.
in Hollywood, too. You know, they use those dastardly people using those camera angles.
But he defied all of the grotesque stereotypes that we have. He dressed beautifully as Belle and sang marvelously and danced, and it was a fantastical display at red lights right downtown LA. And it was hilarious to watch. And people, to see these individuals who have just no clue. I mean, if they're in LA, they have to know that the world is a little weird for them. You know, they're gonna have situations where people, a very overweight, relatively handsome dude with a British accent dressed up as Belle from Beauty and the Beast is going to come racing out dancing.
Yes.
Very, very beautifully, in fact, right in front of your car.
Smooth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's
a smooth operator.
He's deceivingly athletic is the way to
It's
explain
like
James
Farley.
Corden.
It's like Scott Farley.
Yep.
Scott Farley was one of those guys that could do
Chris Farley?
I'm so sorry. Why did I just? Well, it's true of Scott Farley too. My friend Scott Farley, a very overweight guy, also not alive and not with us anymore. Very hilarious and kind of a doppelganger. He actually played the role of the Down by the River.
The old
Yeah, he played the role
Matt
of that,
Foley.
Matt Foley. So yes, Chris Farley.
Yes.
Chris Farley, another heavy athletic dude who could do crazy stunts with his body, and you kind of
Yes.
look and say, dude, that guy's going to die any second.
Yeah.
Like,
And I would say a big difference, too, between Corden and Farley is that Farley always looked like he was struggling in a major way with his weight. I mean, like, he physically would look exhausted. James Corden, he may be overweight, but I don't think it's the same spectrum. But they both were, deceivingly athletic, especially if you ever get a chance to watch Chris Farley dancing with Patrick Swayze, the Chippendales.
Unbelievable.
SNL. I mean, he can move. Guy can move.
unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, and it's true. Corden it doesn't seem like he has a problem just breathing.
Yes.
Like sitting down exhausts him. That doesn't happen with Corden.
Yeah, and the drug use,
And that might
that's
have a
kind
little
of like
something.
a major factor, right?
Yeah, a little bit of snow up the old nose might
Yeah.
have something to do because he doesn't seem so cranked out. He seems more like he's on the espresso train.
Yes,
I mean, everybody, I think,
riding it out.
everybody in L.A. and Hollywood and New York and D.C., they're all on that one for sure. I mean, they may be pounding down amphetamines and everything else, cocaine up their nose and doing the sniffles, but they're for sure 100% drinking espresso every day.
That's true.
I mean, that's their primary
the drug
of choice. Yeah, you can get jazzed up enough on 7 shots of Starbucks.
Yep, you can.
They're like, I like my 7 shots. Is they're like grinding their teeth.
Yep.
They've got a little pacifier during breaks that they shove in their mouth so as not to lose it down to the nerve endings.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's just Hollywood for you, Joe.
Yes,
we both know from personal experience.
Yeah, that's what we know about those folks down there.
The hard life that we lived, man, on the streets of Hollywood, trying to make our way, Joe.
Yes, trying to make our way. We'll get there.
We'll get there sometime. We're there right now.
Yes,
right now
we are.
Yes.
So coming up next, folks, we got Marvel VP of Sales blaming diversity for falling comic book sales. Trump can tweet you. Also, another little special about emo Trump. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.
Love Paleo Radio? Join the club. Support our work by visiting patreon.com/Paleo Radio today.
Back to Eagle and Dragon.
You know, diversity. It's a very, very controversial thing. It wasn't until the 80s, I think, that the first mention of it being our strength happened, and I thought it was a major newspaper. I don't want to say that it was the New York Times, although it may have very well been. It may have been the Chicago Tribune. It was a big-time paper, but it was talking about diversity being a strength. We've had a lot of time since then where people have debated it. They've debated the strengths, the hurdles to overcome. And some people blame diversity for a host of things.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Yes.
And that's where the debate lies. And right here, Jack Shepard, he wrote over at The Independent, Marvel VP of Sales blames diversity for falling comic book sales. And I'm a comic book guy. I buy the stuff. I read it. I don't like going online and just reading comics for free. I like art. I'm an artist myself. And so I like going in and doing that. But at the same, I've wondered. In fact, I asked a guy one of the times we went to this place here in town, The Outer Limit, and we went there, and it was looking like it was struggling in the market. And I encourage people. It seems like a nice place. I don't want to tell people go anywhere, but it seems like a nice enough guy. But I go in there, and I asked him. I said, why is it that comic books aren't selling very well? And he had his theories behind it. He didn't mention diversity one time.
No.
And he's a guy who deals with numbers and sales and everything like that. It didn't even come up on his radar. He had a host of reasons for it. And he's definitely bummed out about it. I mean, he's talked about how the industry's needed to start incorporating things like different cards and sports stuff to try to make it almost like a variety place. Lot that you don't really have very many places anymore that you just go into and it's a comic book store.
No, well, and conversely, you don't
Right.
have many places you go into that are just a baseball card collecting store anymore either. I mean, the places we used to frequent when I was in college were I collected vinyl records, still do, but we have quite a collection. And the vinyl record store, always it was where you went to trade your baseball cards, and they even had Pokemon cards. They had everything down there. It's kind of like a little pawn shop of hobbies.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like a pawn shop of hobbies. You go in and you got all your different cards. But the quote here, people didn't want any more diversity. They didn't want female characters out there. Right here, despite forming the basis for the multi-million-dollar blockbusters that have recently overtaken Hollywood, Marvel comic book sales have been falling. Marvel VP of Sales, David Gabriel, spoke about what they believe could possibly lead to the decline, telling ICV2 at the Marvel Retailer Summit, quote, what we heard was that people didn't want any more diversity. So, I mean, let me stop real quick. He's telling people what he and they have been told, right? So they've hired people to investigate this and come to this, and this is what they've been told. What we heard is that people didn't want any more diversity. They didn't want female characters out there. That's what we heard, whether we believe that or not. I don't know that that's really true, but that's what we saw in sales. We saw the sales of any character that was diverse, any character that was new, our female characters, anything that was not a core Marvel character. people were turning their nose up against it. And that was difficult for us because we had a lot of fresh, new, exciting ideas that we were trying to get out, and nothing really worked.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you got a guy, I mean, they're saying we're committed to this idea, and they listed off a whole bunch. And in fact, he had to clarify because there are, anytime you hear that phrase, any character, any this, any that, that's an all-inclusive statement.
It is.
You're going to have people who go, were there 0 sales? Because that's my favorite character.
Yep.
They're going to say, wait a second, that ain't right. So people got ticked off, and they had to, Gabriel had to clarify that a whole bunch of these comics were still going to be fine. They're still popular, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yes, and it says, falling sales because of this seems rather minimal. Instead, most fans have questioned the price of the comic books in recent years. The average price of a Marvel comic book in the U.S. stands was around $3.99, and it's gone up to $5.99, and that's for a 22-page comic book.
Yeah, $5.99.
So you have a price range. I think the other thing is there's a couple angles to it, but one is that we need to explore is just the fact that they don't like anything new. Just most people want to go to get the old school Superman, old Batman, or new comic books about those characters, but those same characters themselves. And it just so happens that most of those characters were created in the mid-50s, and that was a time where it wasn't very diverse in terms of what your range was of people that were on television or in media or in any type of comic book. So we have this one main group of people that are in the famous group. So I think there's nostalgia that plays a part of it as well.
You know, I recently I bought some comic books, and I'm into the old school stuff. When I was a kid, my dad and my mom subscribed me to Spider-Man. So I had the first Venom that ever came out. I had the 30-year edition of Spider-Man that was sent to my home. I had X-Men for a long time that was sent to me. But as I got older, I kind of faded away from it. I didn't go and buy very many, and I went back probably a couple months ago and said, I'm going to go and catch up with some stuff. And so I went and I bought some, and they were the old ones. But then I thought about it. I'm like, I want to try something different. I want to experiment. I want to actually see different characters. I want to see different art. I don't want to see the same kind of cartoony art anymore. And nothing against any of that stuff. But, I said, I want to try different things. And so I went and I bought it. I bought one called Descender. And I bought one called Witches, spelled Wytches, Witches. Both of them are excellent books. But the thing is that Descender, I don't know if I want to continue reading it after the first one.
Yeah.
Witches, I do, but Witches, they came out, it said in 2014 they had a new cover that they were going to do. And it was, they had a beginning, a couple page intro teaser. And I don't think it's ever going to come out. I mean, maybe. Prove me wrong, guys, because it's a great book. But that's the risk. When people say, well, I don't like anything new, is they say, well, I do. And so they go and they buy it, and they spend $20 or more on something. And then they say, well, man, I don't even know if I'm really into that character.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's easy to fall back on a tried and true. It's why McDonald's is almost the exact same menu.
That's right. Yeah. The same consistency.
Except for the Grand Mac, and I've actually tried one of those.
Oh, the Grand Mac.
The Grand Mac, I did it.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Yeah, it went deliciously until a couple hours later.
Exactly right.
It didn't do me very well after that.
Yes.
But I'll tell you, when first entry, it was the best.
Yes.
It was awesome. It was actually quite delicious. I had a great time enjoying all 1/3 pound of that meat.
It's a good amount.
Yes, it is.
Almost like almost a third of the weekly amount.
Well, it's interesting because the whole thing, getting back to this right here about about comics and movies, and you and I talk about the evolution of mediums all the time. I mean, people who listen to this show know what this is about. Right? They say, okay, look at radio and what the throes that radio has gone through. Look at what newspapers have gone through. Look at what books have gone through. Look at every single medium that you're using with paper in your hand.
Oh yeah,
right? That doesn't come along with an idea that if you don't read it, you might burn forever. Because that book will sell. I mean, the book that says that you got to buy that. That is one book that will continue to sell. For at least for a while.
For sure.
It's the one saying, if you don't read me, you're in trouble. But comic books aren't that.
Yes.
And so newspapers, I mean, in a day and age of digital media, they're not that either.
Yes. And hey, here's the other one that we haven't explored yet, which I think you maybe get a kick out of, maybe not, but maybe people that are more in the comic book community, maybe they are a little prejudiced. I mean, look at what happened in Star Wars with having a black stormtrooper. There was serious outrage over that. As if every character, which actually I thought was amazing. I did think that was an amazing moment. Do you know the moment I'm talking about when they had the teaser for Star Wars The Force Awakens, and it showed that there was a black stormtrooper who actually ends up being one of the main characters, and people weren't really sure if they liked that, and they responded negatively. What really blew my mind about that was it clicked with me that I said, they actually think every stormtrooper behind the mask is white in the movies.
Is a white person.
That by default, that's just what they assumed.
Well, they do that.
I've never assumed that those were all one race of people in my life. I never thought that those would be all one. That would be as unlikely to me thinking about watching Star Wars as assuming it would have been all Asian folks behind the Star Wars mask. But it was an interesting tell into people's psyche to me, where I thought they're actually upset because they think that everyone who's behind that mask was a white guy. It was just an interesting thought.
And it's, in this whole thing, this Marvel Cinematic Universe, Brie Larson?
Yeah.
Playing the first leading female superhero in 2019. She's taking on the role of Captain Marvel.
Yeah. I have a bold prediction.
What's that?
It'll be the worst sales that they've had in years.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Prejudice?
Absolutely.
You think it'll be like Ghostbusters?
Yep.
But didn't Ghostbusters suck a little?
It did.
A little bit.
But, they thought it was going to suck before. The idea was, before Ghostbusters came out, that it was going to suck. I mean,
right.
Most people that say
primed.
Most people that say it was not very good didn't actually watch it. It's by third degree.
We still haven't watched it. Weren't we supposed to do that?
Yeah, I watched it. I saw it.
You watched it. I thought, weren't we supposed to have a Paleo Radio viewing?
A viewing of it, yes.
A viewing of it to give our...
Unfortunately, we didn't make that happen.
We didn't do that.
But still saying and sticking to it. I mean, yes, I think there will be a bit of a prejudice to it. I had a moment when I was a young man in high school, which was really interesting, and our history teacher asked us who we thought was going to be president first, a black man or a woman, and everyone said it was going to be a woman, and she said, there's no way. She said, even historically, if you look at it, that's not the case. Women's suffrage was post even slaves getting the right to vote first, and she said it is going to be a natural thing that the last to get the baton is going to probably come as women. And I think at least if you see in action movie roles where there is a female lead, that holds very true. The same way that if people say that women should be the lead in athletic events, very few that compare with men that people prefer over sports. I would say, except for mixed martial arts, which I think female combat in mixed martial arts is actually better than men in some cases, especially on the ground.
And you kind of take a position. I mean, you've brought this up before about what you think to be the quality of women comics, like stand-up comedians, like, and how, in your opinion, they're better than what they're given credit for right now. Like you think that that's happening right now with them, and that they're actually better than what they're given credit for, and in part because of that. That's something you brought up before.
I think it's something that they have to at least fight against, that a lot of male comics don't have to deal with in the first place. It's just they have to win over. Every time you're doing stand-up, you have to win over a room. And if you're a female comic, there has a tendency to have to win the room over a little bit less and less.
All right, we'll be back right after this. We have a caller on the line. Don't go anywhere. 616-656-1680. We'll be right back.
Now back to Joe and Jeremiah.
I almost left my e-cig at my daughter's grave, Joe.
Yeah, oh, did you?
I almost did, but then I realized that's totally littering, and it's the National Cemetery. And I knew that I would admit it on the air if I did it. And I thought, wow, that would just be really ridiculous. Hey, everybody, that was me.
Be a little bit self-incriminating.
Yeah, and so I thought, well, instead I'm just going to just think about it. And, I've been making some decisions. I've been, over the last couple years, dropping it down. I started at 32 milligrams of nicotine. I'm now down to 1 milligram of nicotine is
Nice.
practically just nothing. I mean, it's a mind game.
It's getting there.
At this point, yeah. And I'm doing really well, but I've been struggling on the air with it, man. It's a nervous tick. It's one of those things I'm just so accustomed to just, when people start talking, reach over, grab it, and start vaping.
Yeah.
And so, I heard it going through editing some stuff, and I said, I'm going to challenge myself, and I'm already in the process of this, so let's make it so that I simply don't do it during the show. During a break, maybe, a couple times, but not during the show. So, pretty pumped up about it, man. Pretty pumped up about big decisions.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm pumped up also about this caller from GR, Matthew. He's calling, listening on AM. He wants to talk about superheroes and comic books. What station are you listening to there, Matthew?
95.3.
You're listening on 95.3. Well, welcome to Paleo Radio. Thank you for calling.
Yep, thank you. I've called a couple times before. I wanted to say a couple things real quick about each one of the topics that you're on. I think the biggest problem that those superhero movies have right now is the plot, the story. It's too weak. It's not like they have this intelligent story that they're telling anymore. It's just a bunch of loosely connected action sequences that go from one to the next. That's my take on it, anyways.
I think a great example of this, and I mentioned this on the air, was 30 Days. What is it? 30 Days of Night.
30 Days of Night.
30 Days of Night. That comic book is remarkable. If people read that comic book, the storyline, the couple in the beginning, they love each other. It's a cute and charming relationship. The whole comic is premised on this concept of love and even suicide, in fact, lovers' suicide. And so it kind of plays into lore even with some of that. But you go and you watch the movie, and oh, by the way, this is also important, is that there's elements in the book of Africa. There's the colors and the symbolism are multicultural. So you have different colors, the golds and the oranges and the browns and the symbols. Beautiful. And then you have the vampires, and you have deep conversation with vampires. But then you go and you watch the movie, and the movie, the couple, they're splitting up, and you never find out why. Never. They build it up, and then they say, well, you can stay with us so we can find out why you guys are splitting. You never find out why they're splitting. They completely whitewash the whole thing. There's no black guy except for the token wise Orville Redenbacher black guy who says some wise things every now and then, and that's just it. So they take out all of that stuff, the heroic, and in fact, there was a hero, and it makes sense out of the second one, the son who gives his life. And then it doesn't make sense of the end, and the vampires are and they're just making noises and hissing at each other, and that's it. And I watched it, and I said, this is redonk. I mean, this is like so that stuff happens, and that's a common thing I've heard from people also, not just that was an experience I had, so I don't know. I hear you on that. I understand that.
And now with the Star Wars, I would have thought they were all the same also, because I thought all the stormtroopers were clones of the bounty hunter from the first one or second movie, whatever movie that was.
Yeah.
Unpack that for us. Unpack what you mean by that. Yeah, like for people who may not follow the
I don't follow it. I watched it with my kids. I thought there was a bounty hunter, not Boba Fett, but the other one, his father, and it would have been him, and he saved one clone from himself, which would have been his son, which would have been the same person. And I thought they took his DNA essentially and just made, a million versions of that person. That they're not real people. The stormtroopers aren't real people. That's why they're all the same height, the same weight, same everything. Mm-hmm. Is because they're all clones. They're not real people. But
no,
I guess
go ahead.
Well, just watch the second movie, whatever episode 2 is. That's the one where that would have been in it.
We need somebody. And listen, I know we've
got
some
expert.
Star Wars.
Yeah, we need a Star Wars expert.
We need a Star Wars expert to call the show.
Yeah, speaking of those blasphemy laws, right?
616.
Well,
656.
I know. Please don't. Yeah, don't throw your lightsabers at me. I don't know. I'm not trying to misrepresent anything. Okay.
I love it.
But
man.
I think they did something good though by bringing Samuel L. Jackson in that. I don't think anybody really had a problem with him. I mean, how could you be mad at him?
That's true.
When they do these, what I don't like is unnatural. When things are unnatural, you can't make Luke Skywalker all of a sudden a black lesbian. You know what I mean?
That's
right.
Like
you can't just do it for the sake of doing it. Now they introduced Samuel L. Jackson as this lead Jedi. He was the most powerful Jedi, the perfect thing for you to do is you go back to his home planet, whatever planet that is. I understand that I'm not talking about segregation here. I'm just saying that, you know, the Wookiee is from the planet of Wookiees, and there's a bunch of Wookiees. You get Samuel L. Jackson. That was how you could have incorporated that into the story. And that would have been a natural introduction to it, to where you could incorporate more things in it. You know what I mean? It's just when things get unnatural, like we need a token black guy. All right, come here. And
like the bow tie guy from the 30 Days of Night. That was obviously a token figure.
Do you think
it's disingenuous?
Do you think too, when you're talking about the storyline, that honestly that has to do with the type of average American adult that there is today, where we have people that are more willing to pay $20 to go to the movie theater to see boom boom bang bang stuff than to see storylines play out, and I think that's true.
Yeah, I took a class on it in college, and my professor said, if you like movies, drop this class, because after this class, you're going to hate movies. And I find it that way, that I'm overcritical of these movies. Like the Batman-Superman movie, I had no idea what was going to happen in that movie. And it wasn't like I had no idea, wow, let's see what happens next. It was, I'm confused right now. I don't know what they're trying to tell me. I don't feel like watching this movie again to figure out what they were trying to say. To me, it was a bad movie. It was a huge build-up to something that really wasn't that important, and they just need to go back to the old. You get the novelist that writes a best-selling novel, and then you adapt it to a screenplay, and then you make a movie out of it. Like The Hunt for Red October. I'd put that movie against any action movie that had come out in the last 10 years.
There you go.
There's just nothing on par with that anymore.
For me,
Tom Clancy's video game. He did that original Ghost Recon video game, like the new ones up. Well, yeah, but remember the original Ghost Recon game.
Oh, yes.
Go get that game. Go play it. Look at the dates and times. Like, this is, it was all in the future. It was 8 years in the future. And in June of 2007, I think is when it was, that's when the game was based. And it showed Russia invading with this tank column. And then you go pull up the New York Times for the same month, and look what Russia was doing at that time. I mean, there was a lot of things. Now, was the video game identical? No. But a lot of the things that he said were going to happen, they happened. You know, I mean, there's just that level of expertise mixed with talent that you can't replicate with just one or the other. You know, and I'm a big Tom Clancy fan. I love those movies, and you don't get that kind of depth anymore. I mean, the fact that this guy did a video game that was so realistic that the events played out that way, I mean, how do you top that?
Thank you so much for that phone call. We appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much. And I want to say, you know, he mentioned something kind of early on. We got another caller here in a second. But he mentions that, you know, people, you can't do certain things with certain characters. Sometimes you can. And to great effect, in fact. And I know some people might chuckle about this, but this is for real. The Wiz. Right?
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz. You recast this concept, and you say, well, we're gonna redo this concept. All of my kids, every single one, like The Wiz more than they like The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
They like it more. Also, Hamilton.
Yes.
Hamilton's an interesting concept with this. I know my dad was one of the guys, and I knew other people who got real ticked about Will Smith being in the Wild Wild West because they knew the guy.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, wait a second, man. This was like during a day and age of like segregation and stuff. I mean, you wouldn't have had that. That's just not real. And I'm like, wouldn't that kind of make that almost even more kind of awesome?
Yes, exactly. Well,
wouldn't it make him actually more intriguing in a way?
Yeah, what's also in that movie is a huge metallic moving arachnid spider machine that's 80 feet tall. So, I mean, in terms of, it's not that realistic, well, you know, stretch yourself.
Yeah. All right. Evan, he's calling from Stevens Point, Wisconsin. He's listening on the phone app. How are you, Evan? Thank you for calling the program.
Good. How are you guys?
Doing good, my man.
All right. Well, I have the answer to your Star Wars question.
Yes, thank you. Please.
So it started out with the clones in Episode 2 and 3, but then once the Galactic Empire was official, they started enlisting soldiers and no longer using clones. So that's why they're no longer clones anymore.
Thank you for
the
expertise. Do appreciate that,
You are
sir.
welcome.
And thank you for listening to Paleo Radio.
Yeah.
I believe I know who this would be. I don't want to say the last name over the air, but thank you, Evan, for listening and supporting the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for doing the show.
Yeah, no
Yes.
problem at all. Yep, 616-656-1680 if you would like to talk about the demise and just give your opinion as to why people just aren't buying comics much anymore. I think it's a number of different things at play.
Sure.
And
sure.
I wouldn't be surprised, given polls that we've talked about America and their views on race or multiculturalism, that diversity might also kind of play a role. When we talk about the impact about Ghostbusters, or what's the other one? Is it Captain Marvel?
Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so things like that, and saying, making predictions about how it'll be received in our culture, and that probably also plays itself out some in the way that comics are sold, and I'll tell you, some of it too, I don't really know. I would love to actually speak with some artists sometime and people, but I know that one of the reasons why you have this divide, and it's starting to get better with movies, and people are starting to be happier about how movies are playing out, is that the writers are getting more involved with the movies.
Yes.
Because you had a time, and Frank Miller, people should go and actually just check out Frank Miller's past. He's the one, he wrote a number of powerful comics, like Year One, the Batman stuff, the Dark Knight, that whole series in the comic book world. Revolutionary stuff. I mean, he's major time guy. But he said that he went and they did, I forget which movie it was. They took one of his comic books and did it. And he got out of the business all the way for a while after that, because he said that the directors are the ones with all the power, that they'll take your screenplay. You could be a great writer. You could be a Neil Gaiman, you could be a Frank Miller. You could be one of these amazing, epic writers, and you get some person, a director and people from Hollywood, who say, well, we're going to do this with your story instead. That's just the way of the world.
Oh, it's always how it works. You take an original idea and it gets adapted and molded. And look, they're trying to broadly sell it to as many people as they can. So they're going to dumb down some things and dumb down others to make sure that it fits their mold.
And now it's cool because they're getting in the business of doing it themselves. We'll be right back after this. 616-656-1680. We'll be right back.
For debates, interviews, or speeches, contact Paleo Radio Show at gmail.com.
You love to hate 'em, you hate to love 'em. You just can't get enough of 'em, you sick freaks. Paleo Radio's on the air.
Welcome back to Paleo Radio, live in studio. If you love our jib, the cut of the jib, you can support our show by going to patreon.com/Paleo Radio, liking, supporting, check it out. Or you can just engage with us on social media. We're very active on Twitter and Facebook, and we would love to talk to you.
And giving a shout out to old Justin Terrell. Wrote, good morning, sunshine. Well, good morning back to you, Justin.
Yes,
we
good morning,
always,
Justin.
yeah, good morning. People forget, because this is a podcast, oftentimes people forget that it is a live morning show. It is actually something that we broadcast live in a radio station in a studio here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, a beautiful and big and prosperous city.
Diverse city.
Very diverse.
Epically huge.
Epically huge. Over a million
Massive.
people. Yes, we have
Yes.
over 1 million people in this town.
Yes,
And
period.
Period.
Whenever we talk about populations, you add period to the end of it, makes it true. That's what Sean Spicer told me.
Yeah, it's very, very formal and official at that point. Period. So, yes, good morning, Justin. Well, we have a caller. Let's go straight to the line. Is it Scott? Is that who we got on the line here?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it
Well,
is.
Scott,
Good morning.
welcome. Yes, good morning to you. Thank you for calling Paleo Radio.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about your comic book issue, and that people aren't buying them anymore. I think part of the problem is the price point. When comic books first came out, and that they were geared toward an audience that didn't have a whole lot of money. They were geared towards kids. You have Superman, Batman, in Captain Marvel, and so on. And it was the kids that were buying them. Today you have, today you've got comic books, that are, $3-4, and kids just don't have the disposable income to, to spend on comic books when they're buying, games for their Xbox.
Yeah. What do you think is the percentage difference? Like, for instance, like Soda Pop, right? Soda Pop is almost double what it was when I was a kid already, but I still know a lot of kids that are willing to pay that in a way, that upcharge. What do you think, in terms of percentage-wise, do you think it is great enough that kids don't buy it, or do you think that they're just accessing mediums that garnish their attention in different ways?
Well, I think part of the problem is writing in, is not being geared towards, that market of kids anymore. It's being marketed towards adults, and adults just aren't buying it. They're not, a couple are breaking through, like, let's say, for example, like Deadpool, you got comic books and the movies. That seems to be resonating, and you've got, Guardians of the Galaxy and things like that, but some of them just aren't going to resonate.
Yeah, fair point.
Fair point. Thank you so much for calling. We definitely appreciate it. Yes.
And hey, guys, great show. I listen to you every Monday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Make sure to share it with all your friends. We appreciate it. We love hearing that. It just, you're the heartbeat of the show. That's just the way it goes. Period.
Yeah, thank you, Sean Spicer.
Period. End of story.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Scott.
Yep,
so,
take care.
It's a valid point, and I was thinking, as you brought up soda pop, right? That it made me think, and I said, here's another thing that made a jump money-wise, about the same amount of money in that time frame. From when I was a kid, around $3.99 or something, to now $5.99, would be cigarettes.
Yeah.
That's another thing. So pop, cigarettes, addictions, things that are, involving a couple different things going on with that.
A few.
A lot of things going on with that. And so a different kind of drive to go and do it. But I think you bring up a good point. I mean, think, people go to buy Xbox games. They download apps, both for free as well as paid ones. There's all different things. Plus, there's websites you can go to, and I've found some of these websites that you can go to, and you can read the entirety of the graphic novels, crystal clear, HD, a whole screen, right? So, I mean, it's even bigger than your comic book. And you just scroll at your own leisure, and you can pick whatever one you want, and you don't pay a penny.
That's right.
And so people will sit there. It's the same problem that people face with anything else in the world. And we brought this up. I don't want to get too off base with this, but we brought this up in a conversation with Nathan when recently you and him were having quite an awesome discussion.
Yes.
I wish people could be flies on walls for your discussions with Nathan. You two are the best.
You kind of ended up being one incidentally, which I apologize for. But yes,
but talking about it and saying that people don't want to pay just for stuff.
That people just don't like to pay. Yes,
yeah.
It's an innate human thing. It's just something that we have to address with the nature of human beings, that they prefer things to be free. Like what I said, we were talking about, and we don't have to rehash all these things, but it is something that we will talk about later on, which is UBI, Universal Basic Income. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about the problems of automation and when that comes in. And the debate and discussion we were having is, how much of an impact will that have on society? And the idea put forth was that more people will have money, therefore more people will invest in things like PBS and invest in, their Wall Street Journal subscriptions. And my contention was saying, I disagree. I think those people may pocket that money, that the habit of hoarding money is very, very apparent in our society. And that if you get a little bit extra, there are a lot of folks that may not just throw that money right back into the system. They might pocket it away. And we have somewhat of the same issue that we have with the wealth inequality today, where we have a lot of rich folks that are hoarding the cash. So it ends up being an interesting proposition. But yes, we may face the idea that people just don't like to pay for things. They don't, even if they have the means, they'd rather get it for free.
We have another caller, I think, on, what is it, line 1, line 2? Where are we at,
we've got
Joe?
another caller on line 1. We have Lewis calling in GR on the FM station.
Which FM station are you listening to, Lewis?
95.3.
95.3. Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you for calling the show, Lewis.
Oh, and that's Vincent.
Sure. Go ahead and let us know what you wanted to say.
Basically, I'm 53 years old, and I'm a comicer. I sat through all the Frank Miller, all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. What's really happened, gentlemen, is they keep on changing the storylines to a point that where the intellectuals, unlike me, I don't do the Spider-Man's girlfriend, which one's better crap. But
yeah.
It's pretty much when you run a storyline, people aren't dumb. And then when you get to Hollywood, they change them up, which is understood. The Spawn movie kind of showed us all that, but it's that they like Logan. That's Old Man Logan.
Yes.
It's not even Old Man Logan anymore. They've butchered it to a point that, like you guys were saying, it's all Hollywood. Yeah. And it's the same thing with the comics. People, it's a universe that 1 minute they're saying, these guys are dead and this guy's dead. Then they wake up, oh, it was just a dream.
Yeah, that's right.
What do you mean it was just a dream?
Great point.
That's what happened to the industry. Yeah, I'm a freaking 53-year-old nerd.
Man, I love it.
You know, I got kids and all that stuff now, you know, but I race BMX. I'm a middle-class kid. I'm African-American, too, which is kind of odd for, you know, not just to throw that in there, but, you know, most of the black people in my neighborhood looked at me like, what are you doing? So,
I think in all communities with comic books at that time, that was kind of the stereotype.
Hey, man.
Now it's becoming kind of the chic thing.
I grew up in Florida. I had a surfboard, man. So, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I saw. You can imagine.
I saw it was on this topic, man. You will know exactly what I'm talking about. I went with my sons. They wanted to go to a card store, and we have one here in one of the malls, and it's a really cool store. You can be a member and all this other stuff. Well, there was a guy back there buying cards. African American guy is buying different cards, and he's talking about Pokemon and stuff like that. And he was hinting at the same thing, that there's not many fellow African Americans that were really into that. He said he said, hey, there's not many, so it kind of makes me an interesting nerd. And so you're now the second interesting African American nerd that I've met in the last couple days here. So I'm excited about it. I'm glad you called the show, and I agree with you, man, about Logan. I'm glad you brought up Logan, because I just picked up Old Man Logan, the comic, and I actually cried. I was reading part of it, and it actually made me cry because it was such a good story, and there was a part in it that just really tugged at me hard, and I said, man, so to find this out, you know, and to say, wow, they're taking even this and saying, why not just leave it as Old Man Logan?
Yeah, it's a good point.
I'm not even excited to see it. I was all over Old Man Logan and the comic forum. There's a place downtown, if you don't mind me saying, Vault of Midnight.
That's where I went.
You have all new stuff, no used stock, so it's kind of cool going in there. You don't have to fetch through the stuff that you already should kind of know what it is if you're in the comics. So,
yeah.
But anyways, but yeah, it's just I was really into that story. I know what you meant, and you know who he killed. So that was the thing that really got me in when I found out that one of the other X-Men tricked him into killing certain characters. I won't spoil it for people, but they just completely just took that out. And when I started seeing clips of movie clips and stuff, and I'm saying, here we go. 1993 is what we're talking, gentlemen. 0 hours. Here we go all over again. Superman's dead. This guy's dead. This happened. Let's see. Green Lantern, Emerald City got destroyed. Wait, it was just a dream.
Exactly
0 hours.
right.
See, and that's when it started. Was 93, and they keep on doing it.
Yep.
Well,
they systematically keep on doing it.
I encourage you, I think you would enjoy, I don't know when you tuned into the show or when you heard it, but we've been talking this topic. We had a whole bunch of calls
we did.
on this topic.
Nice.
So if you didn't catch it from the beginning, make sure to find us online at Spreaker, Spreaker, like speaker, but with an R in it. And we're Paleo Radio Show. It's a black logo with the white words, real simple. And we'll post it online, and you'll be able to hear yourself and share it with your friends as well. So.
Hey, and also I just want to throw one out to you.
Sure.
Hey, great for objective opinions. My mom was a school teacher, and she always used to say, if you're got nothing good to say about something, or if you're not doing something about it, what part are you have in the problem? Are you solving it? Or are you a part of the problem? Mm-hmm. So I like you guys. You always have like a reverse argument or something to say that, you know, it could be different, or somebody could be thinking differently, because that's what we are. We got to society, you know, and that's it. And everybody, you have these reactions, like the Russian thing.
Yeah,
my freaking family. My mom's half a communist. She's Cubano. Okay, so this gets really weird in the black day. So half of my family, and this was great going on the bases when I was a kid, half of them are Cuban. So I got the freaking officer and a gentleman treatment when I was real young. You know, pretty much, hey, your family's communist. You know, so basically, you know, but you guys just have the greatest opinions. And before I get off here, I just want to throw you out there. That, you know, if it's blue, you guys are saying, well, why can't it be green? And I love that about you.
Thank you very much, Louis. We appreciate it. We let you just close out at the top of the hour because you were rolling, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Right. Stick around, folks. We're going to be right back. We have a whole nother hour of Paleo Radio lined right up for you.
You are now entering Paleo Radio.
Paleo Radio with your hosts Jeremiah Bannister and Joe Elder.
And welcome back to Top of the Hour, number 2 of Paleo Radio, live in studio at 95.3 FM, 1680 AM, and 102.5 FM in the greater Grand Rapids area. This is Paleo Radio.
It's true. It's the one and only Paleo Radio show, live every Monday from 10 to noon Eastern Standard Time. And, of course, you can find us on iTunes. We encourage you not only to find us, but to subscribe. Make sure to follow us. You can do that at Spreaker. It's just like speaker, but with an R, Spreaker.com. And we're a Paleo Radio show, so you can make sure to subscribe to us and follow us, like us, comment, and, of course, write a review. We always appreciate those 5 stars. So
yes.
we love it. We love every single one of you. And speaking of 5 stars, Joe, 5 stars for these teen scientists.
Some super teen scientists.
These are
Holy
super teens.
cow.
As I was going through looking at this, this talent search, right? It's Regneron Science talent search. And I'll tell you, man, is what altogether $1.8 million worth of awards presented to these kids.
And some of these are, teenage kids, and some of their work is just unbelievable. So let's just look at a few of them. Indrani Das is 17 years old. He's from Ordell, New Jersey. He won the top award of $250,000 for conducting a 3-year study on brain injuries that identified a potential major mechanism of neuron death and a possible treatment method for it. That's a 17-year-old kid.
So he started 14 years old.
Yeah,
he started at 14. Think about that, folks.
I'm just going to do a brain study at 14.
Yeah. I'm going to identify a potential major mechanism of neuron death and a possible treatment method.
Doogie Howser like crazy.
Yeah, and just so you know, neuronal cell death in nervous system development, disease, and injury is normal during nervous system development, but is abnormal in brain and spinal cord disease and injury.
Really?
Okay, yes. So they're generally considered to be distinct forms of cell death. This is apoptosis and necrosis. Those are types of cell death. So, I mean, we're talking just out of our league.
Yeah, this is way beyond. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm an absolute science fanboy, but I know part of being a science fan is knowing when you can just say, hey, this is the limits to my knowledge. I don't know any more than this. It's time to reference people who do. So, yeah, we would say very comfortably that we are at the end of our spectrum here. But, yes, this is some really amazing stuff. There's Aaron Yeiser, 18 years old, of Schwenksville, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Now, that is the coolest city name I've ever seen in my life.
Schwenksville?
You folks,
so
I'm not.
Schwenky,
I am not
schwenker?
lying. Yes, it is Schwenksville. SCHWENKSVILLE. Schwenksville.
Yeah, schwanky people.
Yes, exactly.
Oh yeah.
He received the second place honor of $175,000. Yeiser developed a new numerical method for solving partial differential equations on complicated geometries.
Oh yes, of course.
Yes.
Yes.
That sentence makes sense to some people. I'm not one of those. His method could lead to better airplanes and possibly better artificial heart pumps.
In mathematics, a partial differential equation, a PDE, is a differential equation that contains unknown multivariable functions and their partial derivatives. A special case are ordinary differential equations, ODEs, which deal with functions of a single variable and their derivatives.
That would be in the case of like basic algebra, like 2 plus x equals 7. That would be a very basic single variable with one derivative. Just to give an example. So we're talking about multivariable
functions, partial derivatives. Then Arjun.
Yes.
Arjun Ramani.
Arjun Ramani, 18 of West Lafayette, Indiana, won third place with $150,000. Ramani developed a new mathematical method that could potentially accelerate the process of network evaluation, which is pretty impressive, which means network oversight and evaluations. That's really
I
good
thought
stuff.
this was pretty cool. Your 5th and 7th place winners, Arcana Verma, 17 of Jericho, New York, received a $90,000 award for 5th place for her study of the molecular orbital energy dynamics of dyes, which may someday result in windows that produce solar energy.
Jeez.
So that's one. 17 years old. And seventh place is Prathik Naidu, 18 of Potomac Falls, Virginia, received a $70,000 award for his creation of a new machine learning software to study 3D interactions of the human genome in cancer. Wow. And I'll listen. As someone who's lived through the life and death of someone with childhood cancer with my daughter. This is a huge deal because each cancer is different. And that's why we've said this before.
That's
when
right.
people say, oh, well, this will cure cancer, or they are hiding the cure for cancer. When people say that, they really don't have a clue what they're even talking
They
about.
don't. They don't understand that.
They don't even understand cancer.
Cells of the body are not the same. What's in your bone marrow, what's in your blood tissue, or what's in the tissues that make up the skin of your body are different. So therefore, they're not going to have the same type of cancer, just like you said. Yeah,
And that's
great
why
point.
they're producing a nationwide database where they're putting in the genomic sequence of all the different cancers, of all the different kids of these people, to try to find out, what are we, are we people with certain strains that have similar structures? How do they deal with certain medicines? And then they're keeping track of it, and they're trying to build this database off this. But what this will allow them to do is to have 3D interactions with the genome of the unique cancer.
That's amazing.
That's remarkable. And these students, every single one of them, there's a whole bunch of these kids, and each one did something just totally amazing. But these students joined the ranks of other Science Talent Search alumni who've gone on to receive more than 100 of the world's most esteemed science and math honors, including the Nobel Prize and the National Medal of Science.
Yes.
So these kids are taking part in an endeavor by doing this. This isn't a joke.
No.
That's a lot of
Oh,
money.
no.
250,000 bones.
Yeah, 250,000 bones to the winner, but I mean, right down the line, you've got 250, then 175, then 150, 90, 70,000. I mean, that's some money to do some seriously good stuff. And boy, if you're 17 years old finishing up your 3-year brain study, you do deserve the money to be looking into some other things. Wow, that is impressive.
It's almost as impressive, Joe, as emo Trump.
Almost
As impressive.
Yes.
And, we...
Gotta love him. Gotta love it.
Oh, man. Who's the genius that put this together? Was it Super Deluxe?
Super Deluxe.
Of course they did.
Super Deluxe did
Of
it.
course they did. Because Super Deluxe involves the brilliant minds of people we've mentioned, like Vic Berger.
Yes.
I don't know if Tim Heidecker from Tim and Eric Awesome Show, and actually he's on now, what is it, Decker Unclassified?
I think so.
Dude, I've seen that. I've watched the first, I think, 6 episodes of that show, and if people haven't seen that, it's ridiculous.
Of course.
It's so absurd. I mean, there's a scene with this guy, and basically he's a comedian, funny guy, Tim Heidecker, and he is playing the role of someone who's a super secret agent, right? And he's being trained for like FBI or something with national security, and he's at what looks to be this really kind of rinky-dink camp. It's almost like a school camp or summer camp, and he's in there, and he thwarts a terrorist situation because they bring in a new leader, and he's dressed up like a prince, from Saudi Arabia or something, and he comes in, and his face is really shocked, and he's like, well, it's obviously a plan from Al-Qaeda to come in, and it's really, really over-the-top, conspiratorial. All his facial expressions are kind of like Trump, and it is hilarious, but he works over there, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so Super Deluxe, what they did here is they took a lot of Donald Trump's tweets, and they laid it over, and it was his tweets and his speeches, and they laid it over, and what they did is they basically made an old school 1990s emo song out of it, about being upset about life, having some teen angst, and it really does play well, and it blends really well.
Well, there's an acoustic one. And it's so much better. It is. It's so funny, and I feel badly about it. You got to find the acoustic one, folks.
I think we can find it.
We'll find it. We'll have to find that during the break.
Yes.
And we'll cue it up so that the sound's real clear and it's real good. So we're going to go ahead and do that. But it's I think it's just funny. I think it's just funny, Joe, because it really does draw out something that is very true, and it is that. On the one hand, we can all remember those times, and any times where, hey, I laughed, where Trump would rip on somebody. He'd make fun and poke shots, and it was like, man, that's actually pretty good. I don't know, maybe he's a stand-up comic. Maybe this is a big joke. But then all of a sudden, he gets down, and he gets real hurt when people throw it back at him.
Yeah, it hurts his feelings.
It hurts his feelings. You know, he's a little thin-skinned.
Little bit.
Little bit. We'll be back with more right after this.
Love Paleo Radio? Join the club. Support our work by visiting patreon.com/Paleo Radio today.
Back to Eagle and Dragon.
We totally found it, Joe.
Success.
Yes, our sleuths have been on the case during the break. They were racing around because we made a big mistake. We shared the emo Trump song, but it was the electric version, and it had screaming, and people weren't able to hear it all the way, and so we had our minions go looking for it, and they found it in lickety-split time.
And we would like to thank that entire room of people that helped us out for the show. We don't want to name their names because they may or may not exist, but there is a room of people that help us do the show professionally and articulately. They are over there. They've done all this work for us, and they've happened to find they found what we're looking for.
Yeah, they found what we're looking for. This is the unplugged version of Trump's song, and we've got the lyrics. We'll talk about the lyrics after this, and we have a caller, too. When this song is over, we're going to get to the caller. It's about a 2-minute-long song, so we apologize for the wait. Here's Emo Trump Unplugged.
I am being viciously attacked with lies and smears. I think it's a disgrace, and I say that, and I say that. They're making me out to be a very mean, bad kind of a guy, and that's not me. What the hell is going on? They're sneaky, dirty rats. Really not a bad person, by the way. The American dream is dead. We're dying. I've never said I'm a perfect person, nor pretended to be someone that I'm not. Anyone who knows me knows these words don't reflect who I am. The media is so dishonest and so corrupt, and the pile-on is so amazing. The whole thing is one big fix. One big fix. It's one big ugly lie. It's one big fix. The press can't write the kind of things they write, which are lies. Stories of fabrications and false. They write lies, they write false stories. They know they're false, it makes no difference. And frankly, our country is going to hell. I've always been thin-skinned. The tone is such hatred. I've been thin-skinned from day one. The tone is such hatred. I don't have thin skin. I have very strong, very thick skin. And I don't call it thin-skinned. I'm angry. I'm very angry. What do you have to lose by trying, Trump? What do you have to lose? Your schools are no good. You have no jobs. 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose?
That's hilarious, man.
Yeah, so those are all those lyrics, folks, have been taken from speeches that Donald Trump has said. Like, we just have to reiterate this, that is all something that those are all words Donald Trump himself has said over the last year while running his campaigns.
That's hilarious. We're going right now. Chris in Allendale, listening to 102.5. Thank you for holding on, Chris.
Yes. No problem, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you guys, you had mentioned all those great children, those students, and the great scientific advancements they had achieved at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
What I wanted to get your guys' perspective on is, I'm sure you and I agree that society really should be recognizing these kids more. You know, that their lab coat should have their names on them with numbers, and kids should be really excited to get that, or posters on the wall, trading cards. basically the celebrity we give to accomplishment of other people like athletes, or even celebrity we give to people who really haven't done much, like the Snookies of the world. I wanted to ask you guys, I'm sure you guys agree with that, so I wanted to ask you guys, all of our societal problems we have, which are many, the fact that our culture really doesn't reward through fame and the recognition that really is deserved of individuals who pursue sciences and solving the problems that you guys had mentioned. Where would you rank that among the society problems we face, like climate change or the money in politics, what have you? How would you guys rate that among the others?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question. First of all, thanks for calling and thanks for asking it. But I do think that there's a serious problem in the fact that we have people that don't really take science and technological advancement as seriously, or they're not as interested in it. Just like you said, we have athletes that get the trophy, athletes that are recognized. Now, with the coming of the internet, I think that's changed some things. Beforehand, I would have said that it's a serious problem, that if it doesn't get corrected, we don't have a chance. Now, though, I would say that there are people like Brian Cox, who runs CERN who's the astrophysicist and scientist who runs CERN, that people recognize. They know him. They know Bill Nye. They know Neil deGrasse Tyson. These are becoming more household names than ever before. And I think that you do have, I saw at least as a science advocate and someone who really, really was interested in scientific advancement, I think in the last 5 years we've seen a massive overhaul of just an interest in basic scientific things. The fact that people live stream the Curiosity rover on Mars, even right now, to me is amazing, because that type of news was seldom shared, if shared at all. So maybe I'm taking more of an optimistic view, but I view it as a problem, but I also do see that it's a problem with some solutions that we've already developed. Is there
okay.
Yeah.
No, that was basically, like I said, because this is a debate my friends and I are getting into, and so I always appreciate you guys' fresh thoughts on it, so I wanted to know what you guys thought.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'd say this too. I'll add this, but I would say that the more that we do to encourage young people to be interested in this endeavor at all, right? And I think $250,000 is a good one, even for 3 years. I mean, you say, well, that it was 3 years, and say, well, it's $250,000. It's a good incentive. And there's a number of these incentives, and that they're making it so that it is a cool thing. And it's always been cool, but they're trying to make it now so that they're really connecting with people when they're young. And that way, as they grow, they're ahead of the game, especially those exceptional learners who are already just dispositionally driven to that field anyway. I mean, these kids that won these awards, this is a special class of people. I mean, I'm dead serious about this. Like, I mean, it's because of stuff like that you say a natural aristocracy is not the craziest thing in the world. Absolutely,
yeah, because there are people that can achieve at that level.
Yeah, at 14 years old. I mean,
yes.
Only the weirdo who's, in their 30s, kind of like the SpongeBob moment where SpongeBob's bummed out because he has dreams and people are telling him to get down. You're not supposed to fly with those pants. He fills them up with air, and people say, well, you're not the only one with unfulfilled dreams, and that's kind of the case.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of the case with this.
Well, I think one thing, speaking to the main point, though, about how do we get recognition for those people, I don't think you do it individual by individual. Like, there is a ground-up way. There's also a top-down way. And I don't know if the top-down way is the best way to explain it, but I do know that getting people excited about science when they're young is the key. That's the key to getting people to appreciate science when they're older. I still remember being a kid when they would bring in the big tarp, and they would basically show us all of the constellations. Now, this is some old school stuff. I'm dating myself, but you go into the gym, and they had this huge bubble. It was basically filled with air, and on the inside of it was a projector screen. You had to take off your shoes and crawl in it, and when you did, it was the night sky, and they had a pointer, and they basically showed us all the constellations as kids and how planets move the opposite direction as stars do in the sky, and that's how we found out where planets were and how this all happened. I remember all of this as a kid. It sunk in immensely for me, and I think that that's the way that you go about getting the recognition The end game is to have it so every individual gets more recognition for their advancements in science. That's what we want. But the way to achieve it is to just get people excited about science in general and get them excited about scientific advancement, and they will naturally celebrate the same way people are excited about sports, and they naturally share it and celebrate it.
You know, if you look back and you say generationally, like times when my kids or their great-grandparents, right, or great-great-grandparents, I mean, it was just scientific illiteracy was rampant. I mean, just through the roof. Even when I was young, you still had, I'm 39, recently just turned 39 years old on the 27th of March. And, you know, I think back at my life and how even then science had not really saturated anything. We didn't have social media. So unless you knew somebody personally who was down with science, you know, or you went and read some books or something, or you caught the Cosmos episode that just happened to be on at the time. I mean, it was kind of like a flyby thing. Like you were lucky to have some friends who were really hardcore into science. And now you sit there and say, man, there's Facebook, there's groups, there's YouTube pages, there's amateur people that make videos all the time. I really enjoy a lot of the amateur people who they've got telescopes and programs on their computer that allow you to see the moon or other objects, and they describe these things. I mean, that is the world that we're in now, and I look at, I'm kind of in this in-between place, and I say, what is better for the long haul of a culture? A civilization that's completely illiterate about science, a civilization, a people group like me that was illiterate for a long time and had to play catch up, and I've had to as an adult. I still am.
Sure.
A lot of it's beginner stuff.
Yes.
Because I wasn't taught that as a young person. Or what is the long-term consequence of a whole generation of people who part of the environment that they are living in is something where they've been surrounded by IFL Science.
Yes.
Or any, Scientific America. All these other things, nature, that they now see. It's not something you have to go to a library to rent out a journal. It's now something you can like the page on Facebook and you can get notifications on your iPhone.
Yes, and it's becoming a hip, cool thing to like science. This is something that as a younger person was not the coolest thing. I was a multi-sport athlete in high school back in the day. I liked to play ball. I liked to do that. I would tell people about my nerdy obsessions, and they thought it was really odd that this person that liked to engage in sports also was interested in science and math and reading and technology. And I think that's the form we're trying to break is why in the world do those things have to be divided? They don't. There is nothing written in the rule book that says you have to take an interest in one thing over the other. We can have a social society that loves and engages in science and reading and math while also enjoys the football game. It's possible. Stick around, folks. We're going to be right back with more Paleo Radio.
Now back to Joe and Jeremiah.
It's a beautiful Monday morning. Thanks for spending your time with us here at Paleo Radio. We're discussing a few more topics before the end of the 2-hour segment that we've been doing today.
It's been going by like crazy.
Oh, man, it flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's already 11:30.
It does.
That's nuts.
Fast. Very fast.
Yeah, and if you missed any part of the show, the first hour, I mean, we talked a lot. We had a lot of callers talking about Marvel Comics and some remarks made recently about diversity being the reason for comic books decline. So if you missed that and you missed all the callers, you gotta go back. You have to download it when it's made available online at Spreaker and on iTunes. And, of course, you can do that, keep up to date with everything by setting your notifications so that every post that Paleo Radio does, that you get it on Facebook. And you can do that at facebook.com/Paleo Radio.
Yes.
We're verified.
We are verified.
Yes. We are the verified checkmark.
We're verified checkmark.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, one other thing we want to bring up very quickly is just this topic about Turkey. Mm-hmm. And the things that are moving very quickly in Turkey, revolving around refugees and EU memberships or potential deals with EU or distancing themselves. And this was an article written on March 27th, so it was last week. It says Turkey threatens to send Europe 15,000 refugees a month. This is from Yahoo News or the Associated Free Press. Out of Istanbul, Turkey's Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu has threatened to blow the mind of Europe by sending 15,000 refugees a month to EU territory in an intensifying dispute with the bloc.
Wow.
Ankara and Brussels, almost a year ago on March 18th, signed a landmark deal that has substantially lessened the flow of migrants from Turkey to Europe. And this was quoted by the Anadolu news agency. Soylu said in a speech late Thursday, quote, "If you want, we could open the way for 15,000 refugees that we don't send each month and blow your mind."
Wow.
Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, Cavusoglu. I don't know. Yeah.
Had already
Cavusoglu.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. That's
Mevlut
obviously the way.
Cavusoglu.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it.
Yeah, I think we nailed that one.
Has already indicated that Turkey could rip up the deal and said that Turkey was no longer readmitting migrants who crossed into Greece.
Wow.
The crisis was sparked when the Netherlands and Germany refused to allow Turkish ministers to campaign in an April 16th referendum on expanding President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's powers, prompting the Turkish strawman to compare them to Nazi Germany. So to give some serious ideas to this, Turkey wanted to send members of their parliament and of their government into the Netherlands and into Germany to protest with citizens of Netherlands and Germany about voting to give him more power, to give Erdogan more power. And in the Netherlands and Germany refusing to do so, it's enraged Turkey. So they were kind of asking for quite a lot. I mean, the equivalent of Germany asking to come into Turkey and have some of their politicians protest on the streets of Turkey.
Yeah.
And for more powers to give to Angela Merkel. I mean, that's really what the request was by Turkey. But they did. They threatened to send 15,000 refugees every month.
That's wild.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's wild. What would you consider that an act of war if they actually started doing that
on Turkey?
Yeah.
No,
from Turkey. Do you think that would be an act of war?
No, because they've signed an agreement with Europe, and now Europe is talking about doing things with different deals. So Turkey's saying, if you want to bounce on deals, we want to bounce on the one that's protecting you of getting 15,000 refugees a month. So it's times. There's some games being played.
Wild times.
Some serious games.
Hands raised. Trump aides rush to try to testify on Russia. And we mentioned this. This is by the AP, Josh Letterman and Eric Tucker over at the Associated Press. We mentioned this. We follow a lot of these groups. And I use the word monitor, and I felt badly about using that. It kind of has a nefarious sound. I follow people, and I've said that the whole time across the spectrum. And you see this. A lot of these people who are accused of being in cahoots, who are saying, "Hey, I would love nothing more than to go and testify." I don't know. I guess I haven't been really paying much mind to Lee Camp and finding out if he's saying anything like that.
Yeah,
I'm not seeing him or Ed Schultz.
Oh, you mean when they're blaming RT?
Yeah, well, because that's what all these guys. Everything that's about this has to do with the accusations, kind of wrapped up with this. But Washington,
yeah. Well, I think they're more interested in the Roger Stones, Carter Pages, Michael Flynn's, Paul Manafort's than they are Tom Hartman or Redacted Tonight's hosts.
Maybe. It's a good possibility.
But we'll see.
Washington AP, their reputation's at risk. A bunch of these President Trump associates caught up in a swirling debate about Trump and Russia are turning to a similar, if unusual, playbook, volunteering to testify to Congress before even being asked. I guess if I was accused, if I was directly accused, and we've joked, and I know I have, and I've joked about taking blame, saying I'm 3% to blame for the rise of Trumpism in Michigan, and stuff like that. I've joked about it. I've also taken real serious, I've been upset about being kind of wrapped up, my ideas anyway, and some of the beliefs that I have being wrapped up in the criticisms of RT and stuff like that in the report. But if I was accused personally by name, I probably would say the same thing. If I was innocent, if I was, I know that would be the first thing I'd want to do. I'd say, man, I would love to talk to you actually about this because this is weird. And I've been accused of some weird stuff. Of being a Freemason. Oh yeah, and I would love to.
I think what opened the doors was Michael Flynn asking for immunity, and now all of them are lining up. Which that's how cards fall too. So I don't think it shows innocence or guilt. But it doesn't. I don't think it takes either out of the woods. For instance, when if you look at it as like Watergate scandal, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but the man that actually testified on Congress that they did have tapes in the Nixon White House. You know how many people lined up after he got immunity and said he was going to, before he did that trial, when he said he was going to go to testify, a bunch of them lined up and said, we all want to go talk to the Congress right now. And it was kind of a similar thing to this, where the writing was saying, look, you've got a bunch of people that all want to testify. There's probably nothing there because look at them all getting ready. And I think a lot of them, too, was etching their place where it's twofold. I don't know what the answer is, right? But like you're saying, if it could be that they have nothing on their conscience and it's because they want to clear their chest. It could be because they know that there's only a certain amount of information to give away before you get legally involved in it, and you need to have that information given to Congress, and you can't be the fifth one to give them the info. You have to be on the top. So you do line up because you want to be one of the ones to get in line. So
Lanny Davis, and I remember this guy. Lanny Davis, special counsel to President Bill Clinton during his impeachment hearings, said, "There's only one way. Tell it early, tell it all, tell it yourself." Davis, who frequently advises political figures on crisis management, says it's wise for those whose names have emerged publicly as part of the investigation to seek proactively to clear their names. So that's normal. Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, told the Senate Intelligence Panel this week he'd gladly answer questions about his meetings with the Russian ambassador and others. Paul Manafort, same thing. So did former Trump advisor Carter Page and associate Roger Stone. Although not an advisor, the way he talks about his relationship, it would be wise, I think, to include Alex Jones in that. He basically says that he talks to the White House every day. Those aides haven't publicly asked for any protections from prosecution to testimony, except for Michael Flynn.
Michael Flynn.
They say, but former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn is in talks to receive immunity in exchange for this. And they thought that actually that was something that in this article they brought up. That they said that's actually something that stands out as opposed to during the election when we had 6 or 7 aides to Hillary that all got immunity. I mean, everybody.
They all got right across the way.
All across the board.
Michael Flynn commented on that.
Did he?
Oh, yes. And he said in September, if you are asking for immunity, you probably knew you did something wrong.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he said.
Yeah, and there he goes. He goes.
And he was speaking to how it was entirely wrong that many people did get immunity and that they should not receive it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why I actually, and again, like I said, I don't know what went on with Michael Flynn, but I would say that he shouldn't get immunity either. I mean, based on his own arguments with Hillary Clinton's camp, it was, if there was wrongdoing, and I agree with this, if there was wrongdoing, then we need to know what happened, and there is no freebies, there is no breaks. You may end up having a bad time for doing what you did. And he was talking about how, with John Podesta saying that no one is, company's too big to fail. People are too big to jail in that case, right? I think Flynn had a point there. But now we'll see what happens. He's got a week to say. Maybe he's going to... Who knows what this information is going to be? I just ask people to withhold your judgments. Have your leanings, what have you. I know Jeremiah and I both, we have 2 different ideas about how this is going to probably play out. But right now, the only thing to say that we can say publicly to you is we don't know yet. We have to hear what Michael Flynn asked immunity for and what he had to say.
Right. And, Russian billionaire, is it Oleg
Deripaska.
Deripaska took out a quarter-page ad, more than one, in the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal to publicize his willingness to, quote, take part in any hearings conducted in the U.S. Congress on this subject in order to defend my reputation and name. This was followed up. It followed an Associated Press report about Manafort in 2005, writing that their work would benefit the Putin government. You have Stephen Hoffenberg. He's a Trump supporter and one-time New York Post owner. He phoned the AP unsolicited, and this is the kind of stuff. Phoned the AP unsolicited to announce he'd volunteer to testify to offer, quote, evidence that is very serious. Same thing with General Sally Yates. Acting Attorney General agreed to testify before the House Intelligence Committee Chairman, Nunes, and before he canceled the hearing. And so you have all these people. And of course, I've mentioned Roger Stone and his willingness. I've mentioned that many times, that he's been talking about being desirous to go up there. Saying that none of them are invited, But then again, I don't know if WikiLeaks was ever contacted. I don't know if were they contacted by the FBI. I mean,
I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't know if a lot of these people who've been accused of things.
We're still waiting on Julian Assange to come to the U.S.
In. Yeah.
Such BS. Man.
Turn himself in.
Also, too, though, this is to add this. The openness to testify publicly in the absence of at least a public demand for immunity is in stark contrast to how last year's Capitol Hill investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server had unfolded. In that case, multiple witnesses, including an IT staffer who set up Clinton's server, asserted their constitutional rights against self-incrimination, either did not appear at the hearing or refused to answer questions. So it is a stark contrast.
And it's one of those things, like, I mean, it's one thing to bring up Flynn and say, you know, Flynn mentioned this before and said, if you do this, it's because you're guilty. And I know people who would use that and say, well, that's indicative of what he's saying for this. And I'd say, then we need to go back to those people that we gave immunity to, and we need to take that. We need to talk to them.
Well, or we hold him, or we hold,
can't, but yeah,
and we hold him to his word, which is to say, if he says that people get immunity because of they have something to hide, then we should be very interested in what he has to share with us in the next week.
Sounds good. We're coming down to the last 15 minutes of the show after this break, everybody, so you're not going to want to miss it. If you want to call, you're going to have to do it real soon. 616-656-1680. We'll be right back with more Paleo Radio.
For debates, interviews, or speeches, contact Paleo Radio Show at gmail.com.
You love to hate 'em, you hate to love 'em. You just can't get enough of 'em, you sick freaks. Paleo Radio's on the air.
You know, I was going to say, we're talking during the break, and I wish we would have been able to do some more live stream video stuff during these breaks. That would have been a lot of fun. We did one before the show talking about it, you know, but saying that not in a move to shift any blame, because everybody blame where blame is due, period. That's just the end of that story.
It's the mantra of the show.
It's the mantra of the show. If you've done something that's wrong, investigate, find it out. But I think that there's a name that's missing, man, from this whole Russia discussion, and I'm serious. And we don't have to go into it very much here, just simply to say that if the whole idea of Russian influence is really what the goal was, regardless of outcome. They may have had a preference, and they did. Let's grant that they had a preference for this, but that they wanted to influence it no matter the outcome. That's a reasonable assumption to make. And to say there was a high-profile person placed, in fact, in the Hillary campaign that was making mega bucks with Russia, that was on a board with was it an energy group? I forget what it was, an oil group, something. And it was making mad money. I mean, he had like 75,000 shares in this company, and his company's connected with Putin. I mean, this is John Podesta.
John Podesta. And so it's a reasonable question to ask, was John Podesta also wrapped up in an effort by the Russian government to influence candidates, to influence policy, to influence outcomes? And why is he just not even being interview? Like, why is he not? Where does he get off?
Yeah.
How does this happen? It's all public. We know that he had those shares, or that he does. We know that he funneled them through to his daughter's front company.
Anyway, I mean, it's there. You can go and read it.
The WikiLeaks docs show that.
Yeah. So anyway, but we were just talking about that during the break, and I said, you know, I want to expand this. I want to make it so that it really does involve the people who they should at least be questioned.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone who should be questioned should be questioned. That should be questioned.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that in this case, too, it should. I don't see why John Podesta wouldn't be involved in these questions. Now, other than they're looking for collusion between the two of them, and there's financial collusion with John Podesta, that's for sure. I think what they're looking for is the collusion in terms of talking together, informing each other, making plans together, setting dates for time frames of when to release things, that sort of stuff. I do think that conservatives would be in a more dangerous position per what they're trying to find. But you're exactly right. John Podesta is involved in a way of selling uranium to Russia. That's pretty significant stuff.
Speaking of significant, apart from our running out of time, and again, if you would like to call in the last couple minutes, we can't promise you'll make it through. We can't promise that. But we've had a lot of callers today, 616-656-1680. But there is an article here by Reuters and Harry Pettit for Mail Online And it says Facebook blocks 85% of all blasphemous content in Pakistan after complaints from government officials. So according to Pakistan government minister, Facebook is now blocking blasphemous content posted on its Pakistan website. According to the minister, the company has already blocked 62 blasphemous web pages and 45 in the past several days alone. This accounts for 85% of all blasphemous content on Facebook's Pakistan site. And that's what blew my mind. I said, that's all?
Yeah. But, I like we said, I think that is all, 85% on 40 sites. Yeah. I mean, when you have laws that are strictly against blasphemy and you actually have the morality police, and not in a cliche saying, but they actually are police that come around and check you on your morality.
Yeah.
I mean, they're real people that wear uniforms and stop you on the
Yeah.
street and everything. It changes the dynamic. This may play into the fact that we take for granted the amount of access to different things that we have today because we just assume 45, that's it. Those people are taking major risks.
They're putting their lives on the line.
They are, literally, yeah.
So, but it reminds me, I said, 65 blasphemous web pages, and again, are they limiting web pages? Like, are they limiting pathos? Can people in
Absolutely.
Pakistan read pathos?
I highly doubt it.
That's just wild.
I highly doubt it.
Yeah, Facebook data indicate the social media app has about 25 to 30 million active users in Pakistan, even though internet penetration remains poor in the South Asian nation. We have a caller right now on line 2?
We've got him on line 1.
Line 1.
I think we know who this is, but we have Stan from GR calling in. Stan, how's it going?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning to you.
Sir. How are you?
Hey, I just wanted to make a brief comment. Maybe you guys can investigate for a subsequent show. There is a McCarthyism connection with Donald Trump.
Yes.
Have you heard about that?
Yes. Well, I think there's evidence of it a little bit with what John McCain said about Rand Paul last week.
Well, no, the connection here is Roy Cohn.
Oh, let me write this down. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're getting real deep all of a sudden. You're getting past the rhetoric
Sharpen
of the
our
day.
pencils.
All right. So
Okay, I'll
what's the
explain
name?
this.
What's the name of the person?
Roy Cohn is if you remember, McCarthy's lawyer was Roy Cohn.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
And during Donald Trump is in his 70s or whatever, and Roy Cohn was also an advisor for Donald Trump when he was very young.
Interesting.
And so that might be the genesis of his attitude about how he treats news and how he treats facts. And remember McCarthy would just throw things out with no substance.
Absolutely.
And he would just his attitude toward accusing people of communists, hiding here and there, and today there's 200 of them, tomorrow there's 50 of them, there's whatever. And so you couldn't get him to be specific on the facts until they finally said, "Have you no shame?" and they kicked him out of the Senate, whatever, or they ostracized him out of the Senate. But his attitude was just to throw things out and make people, like the Red Scare. And come to here now we come to Trump, how he does things, how he approaches his way of getting his attention, and how he attacks people. So this is something you can investigate, and maybe later in subsequent programs you can kind of address this.
All right.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
Stan.
you very much.
Thanks
I
for the
wrote
heads
that
up.
name down, Stan. I appreciate it, buddy.
All right, then. And
All right.
I'll hang up and let you guys close it out.
Yeah,
All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Interesting connection, and
Yes.
you were going to touch on something too about the McCarthyism that you're seeing as well. Like when he's talking about just throwing things out, you see hints of this, and I don't like playing any comparison too far. I don't want to be like, oh, it's the exact same, kind of thing. But to say, I see a lot of people doing that.
Oh, that's happening.
Just throwing stuff out and saying, well, it could, possible.
I do like Stan's angle on it that it's coming from Trump's side, but I honestly think it's the opposite. I think the McCarthyism is coming on the liberal side of it. Some people may say from listening to the show that I've been doing it with how much I've talked about Russia, but one thing I wouldn't do is what John McCain did to Rand Paul about Montenegro and voting against adding it into the into NATO, which Rand Paul voted against it, and John McCain said that Rand Paul is working for the Russians.
Yeah.
He works for Vladimir Putin. That's straight up McCarthyism. I actually, Stan brought it up. We were talking about that, and I said my response to him if I was Rand Paul would have been, have you no decency, sir? Because it would have, I would have been basically making a nod to McCarthyism. Because saying that you have a political disagreement in the House or in the Senate over it, and then saying you're working for the Russians because it's opposite what you think, that's full-blown madness.
Well, and look at how it's playing itself out, man, and how the McCarthyism all around, right? The kind of suspecting the other team. If you're not on my team, I really suspect you of many nefarious things. And you saw this play out recently by Paul Ryan discouraging Donald Trump from working with Democrats on the health care stuff. I mean, where he sits there and Donald Trump has indicated that, well, if Republicans can't do it, right, maybe I need to go and talk with the Democrats about things.
Yes.
Which I think that would be a fantastic idea.
That would be fantastic.
I've been saying that from the beginning. I think it'd be more in line with what he believes anyway.
It'd be a good idea.
So I think it'd be a good idea. But for a guy to come out and to a top Republican to come out and start saying, listen, you gotta be able to work with people across the aisle. You got to be able to work with that, and for him to get flack over that.
Yeah, he got kind of pushed back from it. But
it's hard when, one side blames the other of being a bunch of just theocratic crazies, and the other side blames them of being Russophobes. Snowflakes.
Snowflaky liberals
that all they've
living
got
in their
for
parents'
each other.
basement type
right,
thing.
that all they've got for each other is this kind of thing where you just, you don't work with each other. And it blows my mind, but it was Corker. Corker's the one that said it. He appeared to favor bipartisan healthcare efforts, said in a statement earlier this week that he's willing to do work with both parties on that issue. And it was hilarious because at the end of the article it says Ryan also told CBS that despite the initial failure of the AHCA, Republicans still want to repeal and replace Obamacare.
Of course.
And I said, wow, what a sad way to end that.
Well, they're never going to stop, but I think what they're starting to find out is that this was much like with the Affordable Care Act, was much like Obama having a dog and having to put the medicine in the food. We didn't want it, so we had to hide it. Once he got it through, people ended up liking it. We ended up getting better. The dog healed, right, from its many ailments. And now you have a situation where people, as much as they didn't like what the ACA offered when it was coming in, it has certain benefits to them that they do not want to lose today. And so it's changed the dynamic. Look at how confident people are that are in the middle of rural red state areas, how confident they are in the American Health Care Act. Not very.
Not very.
That just shows.
They need to do something. And I'm optimistic. I really hope that stuff comes from this. Oh, man, it bums my heart, man. I wanted to finish my thought, Joe, on this whole thing, and I heard that music come in, and I thought to myself, dude, this is such a bummer.
It comes so fast, man. 2 hours flies by.
It breaks my heart.
Yes.
It does.
But thank you guys for tuning in again to another fantastic episode of Paleo Radio. As always, throughout the week, you can contact us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter. You can also write us at paleoradioshow@gmail.com.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. It's been tons of fun. Make sure to interact with us for interviews, appearances, debates, all that stuff. PaleoRadioShow@gmail.com. And make sure to be back next week for another episode of Paleo Radio.
You're listening to Public Reality Radio. WPRR 1680 AM Ada, 90.1 FM Clyde Township, 95.3 FM Grand Rapids, 102